Hello everybody, this is Jeremy within the DAW. Welcome back. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at mixing an acoustic guitar with the Plug&mix VIP bundle. So let's just jump in and take a look. All right, you guys, welcome back. Now today we're going to be taking a look at acoustic guitars. And for that, we have a country style instrumental right here. What I want to do before we do anything else is just play you the rough mix that we have. And this is the rough mix of all of the tracks that we have recorded being played with no processing whatsoever. So let's just press play and you could take a listen to the song that we've recorded. Okay, so that's it without any processing. And now let's see what I've done to the mix. Cool, so right off the bat, everything sounds much wider, it has a lot more depth, and everything has a sense of space. And the way that I did that was actually pretty simple. I only used about 3 to 4 plugins on each individual channel, and each one of them was done for a specific cause. Now, because we're focusing on acoustic guitars, this is going to be a little interesting because some of these tracks are essentially just 2 microphones on one guitar. And sometimes you can get a little bit of issues with clashing of frequencies when you have so many stereo tracks in one mix. So I'm going to show you a pretty interesting way that I dealt with this problem. Let's start off by soloing up the rhythm guitar. I'm going to start right here and let me bypass all of my plugins. You're going to notice that this is a stereo track, so I did no panning to it. And I didn't do that much processing. So let's take a listen to how this sounds without anything going on right now. So right off the bat, it's a fantastic sounding recording, and I really like the sound. It had a really deep, full sound. But I also noticed that it kind of clashed with the bass amp that we recorded. So what I did to remedy this is I grabbed the P&M retro filter, I cut off anything under 120 hertz, and that's all I did as far as the filtering goes. Let's take a listen to the guitar and then we'll turn on the retro filter. It doesn't really shift the tonal focus, but what it does do is get rid of any unwanted low end that's going to clash with the bass. After that, I grabbed the electro-optical just to have a very smooth style of compression. And this is essentially just going to level it out a tiny bit. I have it set to only do a little bit of gain reduction, and it has a relatively fast attack with a soft knee and the detector circuit at 100. It's pretty simple. It's not doing anything drastic. Now, what I did do that is pretty drastic is use the stereolyzer. And this is one of my favorite stereo enhancing tools. What this does is it essentially allows you to widen up the stereo image, change where the center balance is, and change the overall balance of the stereo image. And this works very differently than just doing panning. So I'm going to play this and show you what happens when I turn this on. So it sounds way different, right? And this doesn't sound the same as just panning, because if I pan this about 70% left, you'll notice that it sounds a little bit dull and it doesn't have that same liveliness to it. That's where the stereolyzer works. It made it wider while also changing the balance using the center and balance control. And it makes it have a wide image while also staying out of the way of the center so that the pedal steel and other instruments can sit there. Let's try with everything bypassed. And on. Pretty big difference, right? Next, I had the second rhythm guitar. And this one is another pretty good sounding guitar. Nothing really crazy needed to be done to it, but let's take a listen to it. You can hear that it's a lot more active and it has a little bit more of a dull sound. So what I did in this case was I used the P&M Deluxe Tilt. This is basically a tilt EQ, and this has 3 different modes: normal, mellow, and lush. I went for normal, and I just brought up the high end. After that, I went for the retro filter, just to cut out unwanted low end, and then I used the electro-optical to again do a little bit of leveling. Besides the deluxe tilt, it's pretty much the same thing as the first rhythm guitar because I then used the stereolyzer to give me a nice stereo image, only this time I changed the settings a little bit to kind of contrast what the first one is doing. Let's take a listen to this one. Bypass. And now let's listen to both of them together. Bypass. So you're hearing that I'm cleaning it up, but I'm also spreading it out so it's no longer in the way. Moving on from that, we have the guitar solo. This is a pretty simple solo. Let's go to the section that plays it, which should be right around here. And if I bypass it, you're hearing that the only difference with the plugins on and off is that it gets a little bit darker. So for this, I use the retro filter to cut out unwanted frequencies. And then I use the deluxe tilt in lush mode to bring up the high end once again. And then I brought up the output because there was a lot of low end frequencies that were causing a volume bump. Besides that, that's really all I did for this. I also added the dark plate, which is just a preset that I created with the digital plate. And this is just using a dark color with a relatively long decay time using the plate reverb. On the first rhythm guitars, I used the bright plate, which is the same reverb, only set to bright, with again a pretty long decay time. So pretty simple, pretty easy. Moving on from that, we have the pedal steel, which is a pretty interesting instrument because it's one that I don't actually work with very often. I don't have a pedal steel. It was pretty cool to find a musician that wanted to record a pedal steel guitar. So what I did is I used the P&M Cool Vibe to give it a little bit of movement. And then I used the deluxe tilt again to give it some air, again in normal mode. And then I used the electro-optical just to give it a little bit of compression to help it sit pretty well. Let's listen to it without any processing. And then we'll turn everything on. You can hear how the Cool Vibe is really giving it a lot of movement and a nice stereo image. And with all of that combined, it gives us a very nice, lively mix. We get a huge stereo image. Everything suddenly sounds really wide, and it also stands out more while at the same time keeping its place. That's because I make sure everything has a relatively focused frequency balance while maintaining the dynamics, but just taming them a little bit so that they can move but stay in place. And if we compare this to the original non-mixed rough, you can hear that this is a world apart. And there you go. So with all that said, I hope you learned something. That's going to be it for this part of the video. I will see you guys in a few seconds. All right, you guys. So that is how I go about mixing an acoustic guitar using the VIP bundle. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I had a lot of fun making it. This is Jeremy Mateo within the DAW, and I'll see you guys next time.